Agriculture is not new, but for nearly 3 decades, we really almost forgot agriculture, and therefore we began to spend about $22 billion a year importing food, which shouldn't be, because there's nothing. We are producing, we are buying from outside that we can't produce. The idea was to bring agriculture to the consciousness of Nigerians, factor in the private sector more seriously, engage young people, engage women, mechanize to the highest degree, and then achieve self-sufficiency in food production in the first stage, and become, like we were before, a major exporter of food to the rest of the world. The administration before we came was working on something called the Growth Enhancement Scheme. Quite a noble scheme, because it was trying to get farmers to produce more. But the difference between what we are doing now and what was done before is that we are aware of the problems that confront agriculture, aware of the fact that for too long we literally forgot agriculture, and finally recognizing that oil and gas made us lose sight of the reality that agriculture is actually the primary industry of the Nigerian nation. I think people forgot that for a period of nearly 30, 40 years. And since oil was coming, we were busy buying instead of producing. And in the process of doing that, we denied our rural people jobs, we took life away from them, reduced the peasants to absolute penury, and carried on as if oil would be there forever. We all know how fickle the prices of oil can be worldwide, and we all know that a time is near when oil may not play the same role as it has played in the past. So that awareness creation, that change of emphasis, that redirection of philosophy is exactly why we are different from what has been happening before. And the results are showing clearly.
Nigeria presently is among the countries with the lowest level of agricultural mechanization in Africa and the rest of the world, with about 0.03 horsepower per hectare annually, compared to the Food and Agriculture Organization's recommended 1.5 horsepower per hectare, a situation which requires urgent steps to redress our extremely low level of mechanization to achieve the goals of Nigeria's roadmap on agriculture. The Engineering and Mechanization Division under the Federal Department of Agriculture, FDA, of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development is saddled with the responsibility of looking at the federal government's policy direction and advising on policies relating to agricultural mechanization.
So far, the division is saddled with the responsibility of acquiring equipments that will reduce drudgery to farmers, be it in production, land preparation, harvesting, and processing. In fact, up to the end of the value chain, storage. So all these are in the division of the engineering and mechanization. We also look at some of our units where we train operators in agricultural equipment so that we maintain those structures and infrastructures in those units. So that is where the engineering aspect comes in. So we have under us the Agric Machinery and Mechanics Operators Training Center in Misau, Bauchi State, and Akure in Ondo State, where we train operators and mechanics of all agricultural equipment.
AMOTRAC in full means Agricultural Mechanics and Machinery Operators Training Center. This center came into force or was operational in 1988. The center came up as a result of the massive tractors and equipment that were imported into the country during the Shagari Green Revolution era. These machines came in and there were not enough manpower to manage them. In fact, taxi drivers were converted to emergency tractor operators that led to a lot of damages and even loss of life. So the center came on board in 1988, and in 1992, a sister station was set up in Misau to take care of the northern states. Before then, Amotrak Akure took care of the whole country. People come here all over the 36 states to train here. The center has its objective, which is training agricultural mechanics and tractor operators nationwide. We have the training in this form. We have the short-term training, we have the on-the-spot training, we have the train-the-trainers training, then we also have the long-term training. Since inception, we have done the short-term training, a week or 2 weeks for operators from State Ministry of Agriculture all over the country, ADPs, River Basin Development Authorities, NALDA, Agricultural Engineering Department in tertiary institutions from the workshop, and established private institutions, farm establishments all over the country. As we take care of government, we also take care of private establishments. The long-term training for mechanics, 2 years training, while the tractor operators will run for 1 year. And the age limit is between 18 and 35. The mechanics will cover a lot. They will repair the tractor, maintain them, strip the engine, work on the hydraulic system, work on all the implements. So the scope of their training is the syllabus is wider, is more demanding. Since inception in 1988, Amotrak Akure has trained over 3,500 tractor operators, some mechanics, some agricultural engineers, and some technical officers. The issue of mechanization, I would rather say in recent time, the awareness is gaining momentum. Despite the fact that we just have 20,000. It is the interest of the people that will ginger importation or local production. Right now, the awareness is high. 2014, we trained about 50 students here. Then between 2015 and today, 2018, we have trained about 53 or 54 students. Because we need 4 years. And that one about 9, 10, 12 years. So the awareness is there. There is need for people to invest in the purchase of farm machinery to help boost food production. Amotrak this year experienced a massive upgrading of our facilities. Massive. Massive in the sense that the structure behind the red roof, pink roof is a structure that they invested. It has a classroom, 2 classrooms, a large workshop, and 6 offices. It's for training. They gave us a lot of machinery, 2 tractors, those smaller equipments are there, and other facilities, office equipment, and a lot of implements. So that shows the government has recognized this center the more. And with this massive upgrading of the center, then the next phase is for us to actually key into our mandate of training, the long-term training that I mentioned earlier. So with these facilities on ground, and we have students to come and train, with manpower, the deficiency of manpower will be reduced, though not totally eroded. Then people will now be encouraged to invest money in tractor purchase.
We are supposed to have not less than 100,000 tractors every year for the next 5 years. That will take us to near 1.5 horsepower per hectare. But as it is, it has to be very gradual, because by the time we flood the country with the tractors we have, we may not have even the land, because the land is not yet ready it has not been cleared for tractorization. So that is why we want to take it phase by phase, as we have just entered into one MOU with John Deere, who are to provide us with 10,000 tractors for the next 5 years. Gradually, we are going to be there. But for now, we are just going to increase. For this year, they already assured us of 2,000 units, which we have 400 units on the ground now. The MOU we have signed with the John Deere, we are assured of service centers, spare parts. So it is going to be the lifespan of the tractor, we are likely to get it, because a lifespan of a tractor is between 20 to 25 years with good maintenance and proper service routine maintenance. You will be able to achieve that. So we are hoping that subsequent deployment of tractors to farmers, we have to have this backup of spare parts and service centers. Have the blacksmith training center in Ilorin, where we train our rural blacksmiths in modern blacksmithing, where they can fabricate simple farm tools that will assist farmers and remove drudgery at Ilorin, Kwara State.
We are creating jobs. We are training the interested either youth or adult or any interested person in the act of production of those equipment. You know, most of these hand tools are being imported from the various Asian countries. By training our youths and by training individual Nigerians on how to do it here, it will save a lot of foreign exchange, and then all those tools and equipment will be available, affordable, and cost-effective. So, hence our clients is all over. We train from the whole part of the country. From this place covers the whole 36 states and Federal Capital Territory. When we train people, they get those equipment. We train them on it. We identify them. We shortlist them. We recommend them to federal government. Federal government will patronize those trainees and then we create job for them. Their product now is at different communities in the country. They produce all these axe, cutlasses, hoe, a simple hand sheller, and all other things that you have seen. All those equipment get to the farmers at the grassroots level, because almost at the communities we invite people from each local government and train them under our scheme. Thanks to federal government, because it's federal government that has been sponsoring. They will ask us to invite them. We invite people from the nook and crannies of the local government area, of the community. We invite them to this place, batch by batch. We train them on specific tools. We produce with high tensile strength materials, in which we took cognizance of our environment. We are used to this place. We know the soil type and everything that we use. So the type of hand tools and equipment that have been manufactured suits our community. And then the cost of production. If you take, like, for example, a hand trowel now that is being produced from Asian countries, the size, the ruggedness will not be as the one we are producing here. And then their own cost there is very high, whereas what we are producing there is quite cheaper. And then you can easily get it. You don't need to come to the urban area to come and get it. That is the essence of the program. We train rural community, rural artisans. When we train them, they go back to their community and reproduce all these things and start to sell it to the farmers. Even they go and some of them will take it to go and meet the farmers in their farm. Farmers don't have time to come to the countries, to the town to come and get all these things. So some of these are blacksmiths. They go and meet those farmers on the farm and sell it to them. And some of them even collect their knife, their cutlasses to their workshop and then repair and return it back to them. So it's facilitate easy communication, easy services between the farmers and the artisans. Looking back at our past activities, I feel so fulfilled. And thanks to federal government of Nigeria, thanks to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, because it's through their efforts that all these things have been carried out and done successfully. We have trained quite over 4,000 trainees, artisans, engineers that do come here for training. So most of the time, we also got feedback from them. Before, we normally travel all around and move from one community to another to assess what they are doing and see their performance. But these days, we do contact them. Some do contact us through the GSM. Mechanization, we started with this thing, and we cannot leave it. Even advanced countries, they still use some simple tools. They use a lot of tools. We are moving away from the era of cutlass and hoe, using it to cultivate, but we are advancing. Here, we still produce simple machines. We produce the push type, in which we support the small farm holder. Mechanization of small farm holder is being promoted. And by mechanizing the rural area, we have a lot of small-scale farmers. It's these small-scale farmers that are dominating the majority. They constitute about 70% of the farmers in this country. We are able to service them. Apart from that, we also produce spare parts to the small tractor, to small engine, the planters, what have you, most of this agri equipment that the federal government is promoting. We produce spare parts to them so that all this in downtime will be very low. So hence, there is rapid mechanization of agriculture in the country.
For over 4 decades, Nigeria's economy has heavily depended on crude oil exports. The oil boom of the 1970s led Nigeria to neglect its agricultural and light manufacturing industries. In 2002, oil and gas export account for more than 98% of export earnings and about 83% of government revenue.
These and more are part of the activities of the Engineering and Mechanization Unit of the Federal Department of Agriculture in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. Please join me same time next week for more breakthrough of the ministry with regards to mechanization of agriculture in Nigeria. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
papa and our mama, I beg. When I go down here about this thing we didn't call coronavirus, the sickness we didn't call COVID-19, a very bad sickness. It don't kill plenty people and it still they kill. And people will get sickness we don't already dead them body. If they catch this sickness, they terrible. That's why we won't come tell una, say I beg. Make una not let people where they work anyhow, make them come una, make una just stay for house. Make una wear mask. Una they wash una hand well and not let anybody wear non-wear mask come near una at all. I beg. And make una not vex say we say make una not shake una children again, make una not embrace, make una not carry them for body. Because we don't know who they carry this sickness come. Them feel carry them and you know go to pain them for body, but if all person carry them, it's terrible well, I beg.
When una hear say anybody in body they hot well. The person they cough.
Dance again at the Calabar Carnival, the Ayo Festival, Celebration, Ojudeoba Festival, and Aragongo Festival. When this is over, and very soon it will, we shall flock the beaches again. We shall attend our music concerts again. We shall invite the world once again at the Lagos City Marathon. When this is over, and very soon it will be, we can return to our hustle and bustle. We will gather at our churches and mosques. We shall return to our schools and institutions. Our hope is alive. We are Nigeria. And together, we shall rise again. Nigeria Film Corporation. Powering possibilities.
The Niger Delta Development Commission's 20 years journey. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Africa is now or never. You either win it or lose it forever.
It was Guatemalan human rights activist and a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Rigoberta Menchú, who said that without strong watchdog institutions, impunity becomes the very foundation upon which systems of corruption are built. And if impunity is not demolished, all efforts to bring an end to corruption are in vain. These words are true for every institution of public affairs, especially one conferred with such sacred mandate by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, whose officers have subscribed to the oath of allegiance and the oath of office to observe very strictly the code of conduct to ensure accountability and prudent management of public funds. The Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, an interventionist agency, was established in the year 2000 by the then President Olusegun Obasanjo's administration. The NDDC was charged with facilitating the rapid, even, and sustainable development of the Niger Delta into a region that is economically prosperous, socially stable, ecologically regenerative, and politically peaceful. The Commission's mandate area is comprised of the 9 oil-producing states of Abia, Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Cross River, Delta, Edo, Imo, Ondo, and Rivers. Sadly, while the NDDC has a comprehensive master plan and hundreds of billions of naira have been spent over the past 20 years, there is little on ground to justify the investment.
How come we don't have legacy projects in Niger Delta to show? I think these are the concerns of Mr. President. And he decided that the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs should exercise his own authority, the supervising authority, the controlling authority, and see how we can do everything to help this major commission to go take the people of Niger Delta to the next level.
It has been a sad story of monumental corruption and financial impunity in the conduct of awarding contracts and execution of projects. A tragic story of financial recklessness and profligacy, as many see the commission as a cash cow.
Normally, once you have a contract in NDDC, it is like you have won a lottery. A contract that they will award to you in NDDC for 700 million, you can use 10 or 20 million to do it.
It has been 2 decades marked by the determination of a cartel who plundered the resources of the oil-rich Niger Delta, leaving the indigents poorer. Lately, the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, has come under strong criticism for a glaring failure to achieve the mandate for which it was established. Despite the huge funds made available to the agency to enable it function optimally, the insinuation of corrupt practices at the Commission is a familiar tune on the lips of stakeholders and various interest groups in the region. One of such groups is the Citizens Quest for Truth Initiative, a non-governmental organization based in the Niger Delta region and led by a Niger Delta activist, Obiaruku Christy Ndukwe. The group has been in the forefront of the clamor for the sanitization of the NDDC to meet its mandate. The Citizens Quest for Truth Initiative is determined to unmask the tendencies established long ago by the cartel that has routinely preyed on the fortunes of the Niger Delta Development Commission. The seemingly injurious application of funds from the federal government and other sources expectedly necessitated a presidential intervention last October when President Muhammadu Buhari ordered for the forensic audit of the operations of the Commission from inception to date, with a view to sanitizing and repositioning the Commission for greater efficiency.
Lead consultants have also come on board, and at the moment we are now trying to bring out the forensic auditors, and each state of the Niger Delta is a lot. We have about 9 lots in that section, and then the headquarters is also a lot. That makes it 10. And so we have already set up centers in the 10 locations for verification, evaluation, and documentation of all IPCs and all award letters in terms of contracts, so that we know the contingent and actual liabilities of the NDDC. At the end of the exercise, the federal government hopes to have a bankable NDDC where the balance sheet could go to the bank and be accepted, and then could bring value in terms of industrialization to the region. And at the same time, we also hope to complete the over 9,000 projects that are lying fallow at the moment in the Niger Delta region for the benefit of the people.
In January 2020, the President, in another bold step, officially informed the Senate of the decision to vet the books of the NDDC. Although a governing board had been approved by the Senate at the time, President Muhammadu Buhari needed to make the senators understand the need for an interim management committee to work with the auditors so as to avail a substantive board a clean slate to kickstart their tenure. To ensure a seamless operation, the President on 19th February 2020 approved the enlargement of the Interim Management Committee consisting of Professor Kimebra Dikumo Daniel Ponde as Acting Managing Director, Ibanga Basi Etang as Acting Executive Director, Finance and Administration, and Dr. Cairo Ojogbo, Acting Executive Director, Projects, with Caroline Nagbo and Cecilia Bukola Akintomide as members. Additionally, President Muhammadu Buhari on March 10th inaugurated the Advisory Committee of the NDDC, made up of 9 governors of the Niger Delta states. 2 additional members, the Minister of the Niger Delta Affairs and the Minister of the Environment Ministry, were added with the charge by the Presidency for them to bring responsible leadership to bear on the affairs of the Commission.
The Presidential Monitoring Committee will report to me and will be chaired by the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs. Its members are drawn from various MDAs and will focus on monitoring operations and activities of the Commission. In the same vein, the inauguration of the Niger Delta Development Advisory Committee today is in line with the provision of Section 11(1) of the NDDC Establishment Act. This committee is charged with the responsibility of advising the board and monitoring its activities. The advisory committee comprises the 9 governors of the Niger Delta region.
The Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Goswill Obot Akpabio, who is also the supervising minister for the Niger Delta Development Commission, during the inauguration formalities, had tasked the enlarged Interim Management Committee to cooperate with forensic auditors to audit the operations of the commission as directed by President Muhammadu Buhari. Heeding the call of duty and in consonance with the huge confidence reposed in the Interim Management Committee by the presidency and other critical stakeholders, the Ponde-led crack team had hit the ground running in the onerous task of sanitizing the operations of the agency.
We need to change from the way things are done. There will be a radical review of quite a number of things, especially those that are being done wrongly. I don't know about quality assurance or quality improvement in the Niger Delta Development Commission. I want to believe it exists, because you must have measurable performance indicators in every unit and in every department.
On Tuesday, 21st of April, a new angle was introduced into the probe of the Commission with the invitation of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, to be part of the forensic audit being undertaken by the Interim Management Committee. It is believed that the injection of fresh blood and new ideas into the operations of the Commission is already beginning to yield tangible benefit, aimed at refocusing the Niger Delta Development Commission on the path of progress for a better overall service delivery. The unfolding scenario would see the EFCC availing the Commission of its status reports on all its investigation reports on cases involving the interventionist agency. This is a courageous step in the probe process, which could send jitters into the spines of the defaulting contractors and the cartel that had routinely preyed on the fortunes of the Niger Delta Development Commission. Apart from inspiring hope in the heart of stakeholders, the move is also sending a strong warning signal to the errant contractors and those who were opposed to the forensic audit that it may not be business as usual anymore. It would appear that the time to give account has come, perhaps sooner than expected.
I'm the executive director of projects. I took my time. We have to verify. We have to inspect them. I took my time. I went from state to state. Everything, I recorded it. And whenever it is satisfied that you have done work that merits payment, we will pay you. And we were not paying as they used to pay. So the contractors are very angry.
It was Africa's finest wordsmith and master storyteller, Chinua Achebe of blessed memory, who said that those who bring home an infested firewood must be prepared for the visit of lizards. Those who are afraid of the visit of the lizards are fighting tooth and nail to avoid being brought to book.
I state categorically, without fear of anybody, that the 2019 budget was frustrated for personal reasons of some people in the National Assembly, and also the unwarranted probes that they have gone to bring up is to make mockery of the forensic audits.
Since the President ordered for a forensic audit of the Commission to ascertain the veracity of the allegations and claims made against several managements without minding whose ox is God, all hell has been let loose.
Whether the people of the Niger Delta benefit or not is not their concern. They are not taking into consideration the fact that there has been not one single project that's been commissioned by the President in this region.
The petitions and court cases increased astronomically as the aggrieved personnel that were recently transferred out of the Commission's headquarters for non-interference to the forensic audit have regrouped and fighting back for their dear lives.
When the IMC came in with a mandate to drive the forensic audit, you must be well aware that they will have enemies. No, there are people who have unjustly benefited from this system who will be brought to book, and then the people fighting back.
The aggrieved personnel are fighting back through sponsoring of agitations, protests, and engaging professional propagandists to ridicule the good vision of President Muhammadu Buhari of repositioning the Commission for greater efficiency. Their aim is to distract and or distort the forensic auditors, call for the scrapping of the interim management committee and get the commission back to its old ways of doing things.
Kando went to LNG, statutory payments from LNG, and claimed that they were the ones who initiated the payment, which is not true. And Kando belongs to a member of the National Assembly, Senate of the National Assembly. And the letter here says that they collected $28 million and then exchanged it for $360. As at that time, the exchange rate was not $360, and the central bank was exchanging it for $225 naira per dollar. And at the end of the day, they asked for 20% of the $28 million, and they were paid. They wanted to continue. Senator Akpabio said, no, this is a fraud against Nigeria. And heavens were let loose. They claim that this is the money they use to work in the National Assembly and in Abuja. If there is going to be a contest in the National Assembly, this is where, according to the chairman, this is where they source the money.
We got a letter from one of the committees of the National Assembly asking the forensic auditors to be part of our team to appear before their probe. That is totally unacceptable and cannot be done. The lead forensic auditors are not subject to us, and we cannot command them. We are not part of the forensic auditors. We do not supervise them. We only provide the enabling environment for them to conduct the forensic audit. And we also provide requisite information when they need it. Most of the documents that they're asking us to bring for those phantom probes are things that we have already given to the forensic auditors. That's why they're asking the forensic auditors to join our team. I don't think I have the powers to command the forensic auditors that I did not appoint.
What a pity. Indeed, a guilty conscience is the mother of invention.
The chairman has committee on the NDDC came up to us, and I give you an example. This is proof. He brought out a training program, emergency training program, for 6.4 billion, and said that he has met the first milestone, that he needs us to pay him 3.7 billion. We said, look, this milestone you are talking about, the file is here. We said, look, this milestone you are talking about cannot be paid because you have not done it. He said the job belongs to the speaker. We said we were not paying. So we went to meet the speaker. The speaker said he is not aware of such a thing. Then it was not in the budget at all. When they now passed the 2019 budget, the chairman house committee now included it, an emergency project and line by line items that we must pay the money. We said we are not paying. Now they are talking about 40 billion, that we have expended 40 billion or we have stolen 40 billion. How can that be possible?
It is also no longer a hidden truth that majority of these civil servants pay allegiance to their benefactors, through which majority of them were employed and transferred to the so-called cash cow commission.
You should get worried that I'm the one here. If any of you is not worried, then there's a problem. We'll do a forensic analysis and audit. We will try to go backwards, even from the year 2000 up to now, to know what came in, what went out, and why we have not seen much on ground. We will stop you from doing politically motivated roads, where you just go down, even on black soil, you will go and pour asphalt, and then commission it, and the first rain that comes, it washes it away. We will try to stop you from keeping your headquarters for 20 years, since the days of AK also, without commissioning it up to now, and yet the monies that come in and go out, even on where Mayor Water Hyson could have finished that building a long time ago. We'll stop you from paying 200 to 300 million a year as rent on the headquarters you are staying. I thought you should be ashamed of that. to be able to be paying the state government over 200 to 300 million a year. Am I right?
No.
For your headquarters building, when you could have completed where you are and moving.
For the 19 years period under review, this cartel had controlled the reins of power in the commission, as such, have systematically entrenched a chain of supply of contracts, both real and inflated, and sometimes imaginary and non-existing, to their own benefit, while the aiding workers were rewarded with promotion and other benefits.
When we got to the NDDC, we met a letter. The letter from the Minister of the Niger Delta, stopping a consultancy arrangement given to two firms. One, Starline. Starline was collecting revenue, or it was illegally collecting revenue on behalf of the NDDC for statutory payments, and they were earning 1 billion naira every month. When the minister came in, he was asked, the company Starline invited the minister to join in the fraud. The minister said no, and immediately asked for the stoppage. And this is the letter here directing the commission to stop that consultancy.
They have a huge financial war chest, dubiously acquired through the commission, to prosecute their media attacks against whoever stands in their way, coupled with the backing of the powerful members of this cartel who allegedly paid their way to control the committees in charge of the NDDC and the Niger Delta affairs at the National Assembly.
Between 2016 and 2019, emergency contracts of over 2 trillion were awarded under the supervision of the chairman of both committees. And this is the list of the awardees, and this is how they were all distributed. In this list, the chairman senior committee, on behalf of the Senate, and when we asked the Senate members, they didn't know. They said they don't know. He collected 1,000 of those jobs and said he was going to give it to the Senate. The records are there. These 1,000 contracts were collected by a man called Nelson Abamuche on behalf of the Senate.
The rot in the headquarters of the commission cannot be linked only to some senior staff members of the commission without a mention of the ongoing ceaseless sleaze perpetuated by those who ought to oversee the working of the place.
In 2018, a contract was awarded for 3.7 billion. The contract was for the supply of chairs, plastic chairs and tables to schools in Niger Delta. The contract was awarded to a senator. The senator, the same commission that awarded the contract, now gave a store's requisition, a store's receipt to say that this is the point, the place where these chairs and tables were supplied to. And what is the address? The address is Akwede Akwis Benin Express Way, Opanam, before Witchcraft, Witch Tech Aluminium Company. Who owns this store where NDDC supposedly supplied the chairs to? This matter is already before the police.
There is a guilty conscience behind every brazen word and act, and behind every manifestation of self-righteousness. If the traducers were ever in doubt about the determination of the Interim Management Committee to change the narrative of the long-suffering commission, the recent events in and around the agency would have put paid to such misgivings.
The National Assembly will not be deterred from doing its work. We owe our loyalty to the Nigerian people. And as a committee, we owe our loyalty to the people of the Niger Delta that have been deprived over the years. And we say this time around, we must have a commission that will work, not just for the people, it must work for everybody in the Niger Delta.
As senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and as legislators, we have a right to appropriate. It is a constitutional right. And that constitutional right, no amount of intimidation or blackmail will stop us from exercising it.
It's an orchestrated plot to frustrate the efforts of the ruling APC government under President Muhammadu Buhari from developing the region. While the NDDC may be getting back on track after the audit of the 20-year period, there are still issues that must be resolved before the president can get it right.
What we plead with Nigerians and plead with the Speaker and Senate President to allow the forensic audit to take its course.
For those proponents, calling for the scrapping of the commission due to its rot is like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We cannot afford to eliminate something good when trying to get rid of something bad. Chief Dr. Edwin Clark has backed the forensic audit and the interim management committee and called on the leadership of the National Assembly to, as a matter of urgency, investigate those grievous allegations leveled against its members.
Let me say this. The Speaker and the Senate President are not aware of what the chairman of the committees are doing in the National Assembly. And members of the committee are not also aware. It is just a one-man squad only.
Those two committees have put the National Assembly in very bad light, whilst we know that majority of the people in the Senate and in the House of Reps had no knowledge of what these two committees were doing to them. All the faults lay in those two committees, which operate as one-man committees, because even members of those committees are not aware of all these efforts that are being done to rape the destiny of the Niger Delta people, to set the Niger Delta people backwards.
The reinvigorated Niger Delta Development Commission is poised to realize the mandate of pulling the Niger Delta region out of the social, economic, environmental, and political problems that have plagued the region.
Can you believe it? That since the inception of this NDDC, there's no 10 kilometers of dwellers roads anywhere in the Niger Delta. Companies like Julius Berger have never been engaged to do work in the Niger Delta. So when the minister came on board, he has an idea. He said what he did in Akwa Ibom, he wants to replicate it. In order to do that, we needed to bring in contractors and expertise that can deliver projects and quality to the Niger Delta. And that is what the people who want to take over the NDDC do not want.
The hope of Senator Akpabio to see the intervention agency build hospitals, provide light to communities in darkness, support industrialization and food sufficiency in the Niger Delta region could well be realized. The march to a new dawn also offers a glimmer of hope to the governments of the oil-producing member states of Abia, Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Cross River, Delta, Edo, Imo, Ondo, and Rivers to drive development in the region. These are the new realities at the Niger Delta Development Commission. We will no longer tolerate this criminal exploitation of our resources. All hands must be on deck to support the forensic audit by Mr. President and the Interim Management Committee, IMC, to sanitize the NDDC. It is now or never.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online. Or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
I am Elizabeth Amali. I am here to talk about facts. There is so much misinformation and distortion out there, especially on the social media. All it takes is just a click and the fake news goes viral. However, here in NTA, we deal with facts.
My job is to go out there and comb for factual news and information, just the way it is, all in the interest of the nation. I'm Naja'atu Tijani.
Here on the NCA, we present only the facts, verified. Beware of fake news, don't be a victim. Stay tuned to the NCA.
Especially at this time of the coronavirus pandemic.
My name is Nnamdi Ojipo.
Good evening. A warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us on the news on NT International. We're live in Abuja. I'm Ruth Aguela. Let's start with the headlines. Edo State Governor and his deputy Philip Shaibu resigned from All Progressives Congress. Ondo State Governor Rotimi Akeredolu visits President Buhari, seeks blessings for second-term bid. Plus, Nigeria loses 27,000 pigs as African swine fever hits 3 states. We'll begin from the political scene. The embattled governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, has formally resigned his membership of the governing All Progressives Congress. The governor made his decision known while briefing State House correspondents. Adamu Sambo reports that Governor Obaseki was not, however, granted audience by the president. The governor was recently disqualified from participating in the forthcoming APC governorship primary election due to what the governing party called discrepancies in his credentials.
I'm sure the whole country knows and is aware of what has gone on with me and the party chairman and party leadership, which culminated in my disqualification as a gubernatorial aspirant. And upon that unfortunate decision by the chairman of the All Progressive Congress, I'm just here today to inform you that I have now decided formally to resign my membership of the All Progressive Congress. Having done that, I will now announce in the next few days my specific line of action and what platform I will be contesting the gubernatorial elections on.
Nigerians may like to know, why have you decided to come to the State House to make this your decision known?
I said that before I make a decision, I have to show respect to my president, who I adore, who for me is an epitome of incorruptibility an epitome of order, an epitome of lawfulness. This is a man who, for him, that is what Nigeria should be about. I think I owe him that respect to come and tell him what I have done and why I have decided to take the decision I took.
Meanwhile, Edo State Deputy Governor Philip Shaibu has also announced his resignation from APC at the Government House in Benin. And in the meantime, Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State is seeking the blessings of President Muhammadu Buhari as he seeks the renewal of his mandate for his second term of office. The governor stated this while briefing newsmen after an audience with the president. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo again has these details.
Governor Rotimi Akeredolu was in the State House to formally inform President Muhammadu Buhari of his intention and desire to recontest in the forthcoming Ondo State governorship election.
Having obtained the expression of interest and nomination form, I decided to let the president know of the fact that I will be contesting election again, and that I pray God Almighty that I will be successful and that I needed his blessing.
The Ondo State Governor told newsmen that his chances of flying the governing party's flag once more and indeed winning the election are very bright.
Direct, indirect, Aketi is a goal. We will win. In office for over 3 years, easily for me, I've done reasonable work in Ondo State, and it is there for everybody to see. It's not something that is hidden. We've gone on the issue of infrastructure, we've gone on our schools, we've gone on the universities, we have gone everywhere. You remember the president visiting Ondo Lean Industrial Hub. That is a monumental achievement, and he has said to me pointedly, you have done very well in Ondo State. That can go for the president supporting you.
Ondo State governorship election comes up on the 10th of October this year, while the first term tenure of office of Governor Akeredolu expires on February 23rd, 2021. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Let's look at education. The Joint Admission and Matriculation Board has pegged minimum national cut-off marks for admissions into universities in Nigeria at 160. Cut-off marks for polytechnics 120, while colleges of education and innovative enterprise and institute entry marks is 100. The decision was taken at the 2020 policy meeting on admissions into tertiary institutions in Nigeria in Abuja. Olanka Ojo has that report.
In this hall are decision makers in the nation's tertiary institutions, and the decision taken here will determine the fate of more than 1.9 million candidates seeking admission into universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, and innovative enterprising institutes. The lead decision maker at the policy meeting is the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB. JAMB's registrar's remark was eagerly waited for by the heads of institutions and the anxious candidates whose minds were following the virtual meeting, even though they are not physically present.
Universities will have minimum score points of UTME as decided by each of the universities. For the polytechnics and the colleges of education, also as decided by each of the institutions, except that no institution will be allowed to admit a candidate for universities if he has scored less than 160.
While some tertiary institutions are found wanting in the admission process, another major decision reiterated by the Minister of State for Education is strict adherence to the use of Central Admissions Processing System (CAPS) during admission.
No admission offer should be made to any candidate outside the Central Admission Processing System (CAPS). These institutions during admission outside Central Admission Processing Systems are endangering our system and confusing our candidates.
With the pronouncement of the 2020 UTME cut-off marks, the date for the commencement of admission is to be announced soon. Olayinka Ojo, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the appointment of 12 new permanent secretaries in the Federal Civil Service. The head of service of the Federation, Dr. Felicia Jamieson, who made this known in Abuja, said the appointed federal permanent secretaries cut across 12 states. The swearing-in and deployment will be announced in due course. Now let's go to update on COVID-19. Nigeria has lost a total of 424 persons to COVID-19 as the wife of Ukraine's president hospitalized following coronavirus infection. Adebola Brookslyn Sunday has a global update.
Nigeria now has 10,885 active cases of coronavirus. This is after the recovery and discharge of 5,349 persons, 424 deaths, while the total number of confirmed cases stands at 16,658, as published by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC. Meanwhile, the Africa Center for Disease Control says the continent now has a total of 251,866 cases of COVID-19, with 6,769 deaths and 114,308 recoveries. And on the COVID-19 Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University dashboard at about 6:50 p.m. local time, 8,160,996 persons have been infected with coronavirus globally. 440,387 deaths, while 4,263,462 people have recovered from the virus. New Zealand's Director General of Health, Ashley Bloomfield, says 2 women who arrived in the country from Britain have tested positive for coronavirus. Ashley Bloomfield said the pair were released early from government quarantine and permitted to drive from the city of Auckland to the capital Wellington before being diagnosed or even tested, and that the women had done everything right and had not put other members of the public at risk. The pair mark New Zealand's first new cases of COVID-19 for more than 3 weeks of no case in the country. The wife of Ukraine's President Olena Zelenska has been hospitalized after contracting the novel coronavirus. The presidential office said her condition is stable. Last week, Zelenska said she had tested positive for COVID-19, while her husband, Volodymyr Zelensky, and their 2 children tested negative.
The global updates there, and still more arising from COVID-19. The Lagos state government has suspended planned reopening of churches and mosques indefinitely as a result of the rising cases of COVID-19 in the state. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, at a news briefing on update of COVID-19, assured residents that government will continue to base its decision-making on data modeling to ensure the protection of lives and property. Governor Sanwo-Olu, who expressed gratitude to those at the front lines of the response to the pandemic in the public and private sectors, urged residents to continue to obey government's COVID-19 directives as community transmission is on the increase. Nosa Osula reports that the government had planned to reopen the worship centers on Friday this week, which was supposed to be June 19. Let's talk agric. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture has confirmed the outbreak of African swine fever in the country. Chief Veterinary Officer of the Federation, Olaniran Alabi, in an exclusive interview with NTA, says steps are being taken by the government officials to curtail and stop the spread of the disease. Let's hear from Musa Baba Aliyu.
In the last few weeks, we are beginning to record increases in the number of outbreaks, which of course is not peculiar to Nigeria.
The African swine virus was first noticed in Lagos State in a farm located at Okearo, affecting more than 20,000 pigs. The virus later spread to Ogun and Abia states. Even though it is not the first time Nigeria is experiencing the outbreak, however, farmers are afraid that this time around it will be hard on their socioeconomic well-being. The Chief Veterinary Officer of the Federation says the disease is harmless to humans, but can kill pigs within few days.
The disease has no vaccination. There's no vaccine for it. So the best control for African swine fever is putting in place a very good biosecurity program, which of course most of these farmers we have tried in several ways to create awareness on how to put biosecurity on their farms to prevent African swine fever.
The federal government has already deployed her veterinary officers with a view to curtail the spread of the disease. In Abuja, Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
And following that development, we have in the studio Chief Veterinary Officer and Epidemiologist, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Peter Umana. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good evening,
Right.
viewers.
Okay, now this outbreak of swine fever in Nigeria, how serious would you say is this disease? Is it zoonotic?
Well, thank you very much. African swine fever, in its current outbreak, is quite serious. The African swine fever is very severe and highly, pathogenic and hemorrhagic fever of domestic and wild pigs. It spreads very rapidly from pig to pig and can also be spread through materials that have been in contact with infected or dead animals. And so it's very, very severe. It's a notifiable disease because its impact cuts across international boundaries. So it's a transboundary animal disease. So it's very, very severe infection.
Okay, we hear that more than 20,000 pigs have been affected. How vibrant is the piggery subsector of agriculture, and how would this outbreak affect its development?
The pig industry in Nigeria is quite vibrant, especially between the north-central region and the southern region of the country. Many people have caught on to the pork culture, and the consumption has increased tremendously. So also the industry has grown. To assess the vibrancy, just take a case of the current outbreak in a farm that the Chief Veterinary Officer of Nigeria has already mentioned, the Okeado farm at Lagos. That farm estate has over 2,000 farmers there into primary production. And if they're into primary production and you're looking at the secondary economic impact of their activities in terms of marketing, processing, and other things, you would see that the pig industry is quite robust and very vibrant. Already, Nigeria has a very big market for pork, and over 60% of pig produced in the country is consumed locally. 30% is exported to neighboring countries, and the value of that export is placed at over 3 billion naira annually. So the pig industry is quite vibrant.
Okay, so I know that the ministry have already swung into action, but what measures specifically have been put in place to curtail the spread of the outbreak?
Thank you. Like you've heard mentioned by the Director of Various Services, anytime we receive an outbreak, we activate our disease investigation and containment team in each of the states in the areas that are affected, and they work with the state veterinary services to carry out immediate investigation of the disease and institute containment measures. That is what we have done in current disease outbreak, and in those states, we supported the states with disinfection materials. We were working with the state ministries of agriculture, commence and continuing sensitization of farmers with respect to biosecurity measures to institute, how to dispose of dead animals, and how to prevent further spread. Okay. Also to restrict movement restrictions so as to prevent movement of sick and contaminated items from farm to farm. Right. Those are the things that the ministry has done. Okay. The ministry also, within the period, in each of the zonal offices, we have in place response vehicles that we have used to support any state for immediate, reaction. So that anytime there's a place, you can pick a vehicle from from the zonal offices and quickly support the state that is affected in investigation activities.
I'm afraid that's where I will leave it. Thank you very much. The good thing is that it's not transmissible to humans, but all the best with the work. Let's go on a break. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned.
We have observed the lockdown. We have practiced the measures in order to curb the spread of the virus, but we can do better. The coronavirus spread is increasing daily, and only together can we cut down the numbers and defeat the spread of the virus. Remember, COVID-19 is not a death sentence, and a recovered patient cannot spread the disease. Do not stigmatize. Do not hesitate to report any case or if you have come in contact with anybody that has been infected with COVID-19. If you have cough and fever, please stay at home and call your state hotline. Find state numbers at www.covid19